Here we are on the banks of the Rhine River. It's 55 BC. How did the Romans get all the way to the north? Julius Caesar's got his troops. They're building a bridge. What are they doing? Are they establishing better trade networks with those barbarians on the other side? No, we're coming here from lesson 50, where the three celebrity generals have just been getting more wealth and power. And in this decade, the 50s BC, it's about the First Triumvirate. This lesson puts Crassus, Pompey, and Julius Caesar into an even stronger and wealthier position in this First Triumvirate. But this was supposed to be a design for the Roman Senate to kind of see the power balanced a little bit, that the old ways, the old Roman Republic will be safe. But what happens? These three guys are going to get so much power, and would they ever turn on each other? This lesson will help you find out. In lesson 51, it's the First Triumvirate. What do they do about the Gauls, the barbarians in the north? What about the slaves and the gold that it's picked up? Massive wealth, it's going to impact the economy. And what about Crassus? Way out there in the Parthian desert, he's facing the home field advantages, an army built for speed. And how's the Senate doing? You know, they wanted these three guys to share power, but the Senate, the old way, is kind of burning itself down. You can't have a successful triumvirate and keep the old Roman Republic. I'm Mr. Hull, and this is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where history reveals truth and wisdom for your journey. We take a classical approach to history, grounded in what actually matters, like the triumvirate, these three powerful people being a part of the Roman Republic. And I want to make you a Republic expert, a classical scholar who could learn how to think through these political issues. You know, in the United States, we have a republic. Western civilization is rooted in lessons learned right here. So what do we need to know about the Republic? It's coming undone. In this lesson, the First Triumvirate will be successful, but it doesn't mean the old Republic will be around for much longer. So we have Crassus, Pompey the Great, Julius Caesar, ambition, greed, pride, glory. We have a big decade to cover here. Let's begin. To understand 60 BC and the formation of this First Triumvirate, it's important to think of this as a game board that's the size of the Mediterranean Sea. There are many different theaters of operation in this game. Each one of these theaters is perfectly matched to the flaw of the man that's commanding it. We've got three men. What flaws do they have? Let's go north to Gaul. We've mentioned the Rhine River. This place is resource rich. It's untamed. No offense to the barbarians, but they're being called barbarians because they don't speak Latin or Greek. It's a vast frontier, and it just runs throughout northern France. Today we would call France. To Germany, the Rhine River, southern France, northern Italy. It's packed with these independent tribal confederacies. A lot of ancient forests, and of course, famous grapevines and vineyards of the future. There's more human capital present here in these undeveloped tribes than Rome has ever seen in one place. And they've seen a lot of potential slaves. So this will become Julius Caesar's theater. His theater of operations in the north in Gaul. This will be a big decade for him. He approaches Gaul the way he approaches pretty much everything, with a little Caesar swagger, but also with some incredible speed, because he's always been on this ambition spiral, and he's in a rush. And the speed, the Romans, the Latin word would be celeritas, that he is in a hurry for success and ambition. Second, let's go to Rome. The capital city is not the marble paradise, the eternal city that everyone romanticizes about. It's been kind of crackling for a few lessons now under the extreme wealth and outside influence. Inequality. Got the problems of street violence now and kind of the struggle. Food is kind of expensive. The Roman Curia, that's where the Senate meets, is surrounded often by the mob politics, kind of using fear to get the Senate to act the way they want, all the while our celebrity generals are out and around. And Pompey the Great is that second guy there in Rome. Third is Parthia. Parthia, way off to the east, beyond Syria, modern-day Iran. It's a vast flat. There's mountainous areas. There's old Mesopotamia. This arid empire stretches across modern-day Iraq into the Persian, the Iranian mountains, and Rome. That's Rome's only true peer competitor. Kind of a blast from the past. How big was the Persian Empire in the old days? It's a civilization that fights in a way that Rome has never fully understood, but Crassus is there. By putting Julius Caesar in charge of Gaul, he's a governor, the proconsul, the province consul. Proconsular governor of Gaul carries an almost supernatural level of energy. He's the youngest guy. And youth doesn't always mean he's always been charismatic. He does a lot that inspires and excites the people. He's always moving and calculating. And his soldiers are people. Julius Caesar from the Populare party, appeals, has always done things for the people, but his soldiers are people. And they don't just follow him. It's like they worship him. If you give him this decade of years in Gaul where they're winning and getting wealthy, can you imagine what you might do for a leader who's putting you in all the best places? And Julius Caesar is that guy. Now, Pompey the Great was someone who discovered Caesar's talent early on. Pompey the Great earned the title Great for a lot of his own military success and wealth. This decorated war hero conquered the Eastern Mediterranean, and he's a little older, quietly retreating to his wealthy, fancy estate, and he has a brand new young wife. So maybe the first new fact you should take in is that Julius Caesar's young daughter, Julia, is now married to Pompey. Now, why are we doing that? Is it paranoia? Is this the way powerful, wealthy people can get along, is by keeping families intermarried? Who was afraid of who? It's a mutually beneficial arrangement in that Julius Caesar's daughter is now part of Pompey's family. Would they ever turn on each other? Well, Crassus. And we've talked about Crassus as being the wealthiest private citizen in the history of Rome, with 7,100 talents that he was earning from, one of his big ventures was following the fire. He was a fire follower. His team would show up when your apartment building, your property is burning, and he would offer you money, a lowball price, and then he would bring in, you would accept it, and he would bring in his fire brigade of 500 slaves. It's not the only way Crassus got rich, but he is a celebrity general and has the money to pay for glory. But Crassus is not yet really happy. He's got the money, but he does not have the glory. That Greek glory, the kleos, the long-lasting, immortal glory. That deficiency is going to get a lot of people killed. Now, one more thing we need to understand before digging deeper into the Roman Republic. The Roman Constitution, the vetoes, the term limits, the checks and balances, going back to lesson 45 as we established the Republic. And it's the lesson so many countries in today's world have taken and tried to apply to a great government. The Roman Republic was built on the concept that Rome inherited from Aristotle, the Greeks. Aristotle's golden mean. We saw that in lesson 45 with Cincinnatus. Do we still have that in the Roman Republic today? That idea of virtue is supposed to be the middle ground between the excess and the deficiency. The excess, too much courage, too much recklessness, and the deficiency, which would be, cowardice. But I think we're dealing with too much ambition, whether it's Caesar's ambition spiral or what is Pompey and Crassus headed towards. Is it tyranny? Is it too much power in one person's hand? In this case, 3 people. It's a triumvirate. It's not really designed to honor virtue. It was designed to just not blow each other up, to keep the Republic going. But unfortunately, that design is actually here to destroy the Roman Republic. In 54 BC, Julius Caesar's daughter, Julia, the one that has been with Pompey for 5 years, is giving birth to Pompey's child. The baby does not survive childbirth. Julia does not survive childbirth, so she dies. Think about what that actually means in a single moment, the human relationship that was kind of the mortar keeping those two together, Caesar and Pompey. Do they still have an emotional alignment? One bond that could transcend politics and money and ego. It just ceases to exist. Are you concerned? Without Julia as the anchor, the 3 philosophical extremes of the gang of 3, the cartel. Would you call it a cartel? They're managing 3 different parts of the world. They're wealthy and strong. Suddenly, are they running completely unchecked? Caesar's absolute ambition has been evident with his extreme success in Gaul. Crassus is taking a lot of risks as he's heading off to Parthia. He has kind of a blindness about how much greed and glory. Pompey is prideful as the older favorite of the Senate. One by one, we're going to have some major problems. Caesar's going to be up first. He goes to work in a very systematic and kind of an industrial way over the course of his Gallic wars, his Gallic campaigns. Caesar's legions completely destroy the barbarians. So it's not even fair. It's, in one count, 800 entire towns. These are different settlements, different tribes and different cultures, but they're entirely being wiped out and enslaved. This is 1 million Gauls, 1 million people that are entering into the slave market, being marched back to Roman chains to be sold in the Roman slave auctions. This will generate a lot of money, 25 million denarii. And that's just Caesar's cut. When you are the guy in charge of this, it's largely wealth you're accumulating. It's for the state, but you've got to pay your troops. Your troops are excited for a piece of the action. And there's enough money here to erase the colossal debts that have been gathered. Julius Caesar in lesson 50 had a small debt that Crassus guaranteed. Well, this is now paid off. And he's also investing in his political machine back home in Rome. He's not in Rome, he's in Gaul, having success and power and wealth. He's flooding Rome with so much raw plunder. Gold also, besides the slave market, the global value of the amount of gold, it is actually starting to collapse the price. A 33% reduction. This is going to kind of cause an inflationary environment. This is a interesting problem, but Rome becomes even more rich. The money is not the main part of Caesar's strategy here. He also just needs to control the power and that means control the narrative. What am I talking about? Narrative warfare. We've mentioned this before because Caesar has enemies. Cicero is one of those senators who's speaking out against him. So how do you get out ahead? The narrative warfare. The Greeks would have done it this way. Caesar is definitely copying this idea because what he is doing is writing annual sections of a book. The commentary of the Gallic Wars, the Gallic War commentaries, the annual, thrilling, masterfully crafted military dispatches. He writes them in kind of a gripping third-person style, very simple Latin at an accessible level so that everybody could understand what's going on. He's speaking to the people. He is a populare. And he understands that the people are excited about a celebrity general. The Roman public is the target audience of this message, and he bypasses the Senate by writing books and being popular with the people and creating great content. Is this something that you think sounds familiar today? Put a comment in the chat if you haven't pressed the like button, and make sure that you've subscribed. But it's a great time for you to think, who is like Julius Caesar today? Who is thinking about narratives and expressing them in a way that everybody can access them? Whether you like it or not, stories about winning and defeating the enemy and plunder, wealth. It is gripping. And Caesar is doing this well. The Gallic Wars by Julius Caesar. And he always refers to himself kind of as a savior, as a hero in the third person, as Caesar. Boy, that name's going to stick, isn't it? He is the indispensable hero of the North. And Rome loves him. This is actually the ancient world's first sustained propaganda campaign. Do you know what propaganda really is? We think it's a bad word, but it's really organized messaging that's loaded up and it's aimed directly at the masses. Would you say it's aimed directly at the mob? We have problems with the mob. It's working brilliantly, and it's one of the reasons why Caesar is kind of the star of the storyline. All right, let's switch over to Crassus, because Crassus is watching all of this from Rome, and he's watching Caesar accumulating this type of military glory that turns men into legends, and that's happening. It's like something breaks inside of Crassus. What do you do? What do you do when Caesar is the big star? He's young, he's charismatic. What do you do? This is really when I'm teaching my lesson, I pause in the classroom. I want people to think, what is Crassus going to do next? I kind of already teased it, but think about Crassus with a different job, like if he's a banker, a financier, an athlete, a kingmaker, whatever. If you feel envious, if you feel left out, like someone else is winning more, a person like Crassus, is he acting virtuous if he just strictly thinks that he's got to get the glory bigger and better? Is this Greek excellence happening here in his application of heroism? He wants his own triumph, and so he leverages this colossal wealth. I mean, really, as this level billionaire, he can do whatever he wants, and so he secures the governorship of Syria as governor. Julius Caesar had been governor of Spain for a minute, and now we can see from the map as the Triumvirate organizes these different places. Obviously, Caesar has the north with Gaul. Pompey is the proconsul, the consul over the province of Spain, and here Crassus gets the east. Syria governorship, but without Senate approval. Crassus, on his way to the east, he stops in Jerusalem. Why spend your own money when you could loot the second temple? Remember, just back in lesson 49, Pompey is the reason why the Romans have authority in Jerusalem, in Judea. These are the monotheistic people. They don't worship Jupiter or any of the gods. They have a sacred temple. Pompey kind of defiled the sacred temple. He paid to have it purified, but Crassus is ready to loot 2,000 talents of solid gold. That includes the sacred objects, the ritual vessels, all of it just loaded into pack animals for the people to see. This is a generation of Jewish people traumatized over what the Romans are doing. And this is going to echo. We're going to be back. We're going to have Roman tension here in Judea and Jerusalem. Maybe you know what's coming there. But people in Rome are not happy with their celebrity generals. I mean, it sounds like they're really pleased with Caesar's winnings, but Crassus did not have the authority to do what he just did. And it's not clear what the point of Crassus's campaign even is. So back home in Rome, we've got some street gangs and a leader named Clodius that are, basically rioting. No one's in charge. What's going on in Rome? And Clodius gets murdered in one of these riots. They try to burn his body in a funeral pyre, but they put the pyre inside the Senate house, which then burns down everything. The entire curia goes up in flame. They have a pile of ash kind of showing literally this republic is burning down. The physical burning. The republic is no longer just philosophically burning when you can say that the Senate house has burned down. And Crassus is in the Parthian desert, invading people to the east. Crassus is about to make everything worse because he actually had a choice. He receives an offer. 40,000 allied reinforcements are available by way of a safe mountainous route, a path that kind of neutralizes Parthia's greatest military advantage. They're fast, they're swift, and they will use the flat ground. We've covered this in past lessons about the Persian Empire. But Crassus rejects this strategic move. Crassus has come for a quick, glorious, decisive victory, and he does not want a slow, grinding mountain campaign. He wants big victories, Pompey's kind of triumph, and Caesar's kind of glory, fame. Crassus marches his 40,000 heavy infantrymen directly into the open desert, into the killing ground, the killing zone. In this battle of Carrhae, 53 BC, Crassus's legions are deep in the Parthian interior. The land is flat for miles and miles in every direction. No hills, no rivers. The terrain is total home field advantage. When the Parthian general Surena arrives, put yourself into the sandals, the military boots of these Roman legions. You've trained your entire life for close quarters combats. You believe in Crassus, you following him. He's made you pretty rich. And you carry a shield, the gladius sword. You're ready. Your entire military philosophy is just based on closing the distance because you are stronger. You are locked in shields in your formation with your neighbor. Like the old phalanx, only way better. You can grind the enemy down just by sheer weight and the discipline. But the Parthian general Surena knows all of this. Not going to play into the Roman strengths the way Crassus has. So Surena does not close the distance. He deploys 9,000 horse archers, the fastest cavalry in the entire ancient world. They never stop moving. They circle, they sweep, they fire their archers, their arrows. And when you think there's a retreat happening, they just twist back around, saddle up, and fire again at full gallop. The Romans will be known to call this the Parthian shot. You'll recognize the phrase Parthian shot. It's still in the language today because what do you think is happening? As arrows are raining down, they pierce the shields, they pin the men's feet into the sand. They penetrate everything. Parthian general Serena has solved the only real problem an archer army ever even has. And that is running out of arrows. You know, you're safe off at a distance. You got fast horses. So how do you not run out of arrows? Pack camels. Pack camels are loaded exclusively with fresh ammunition, and it seems like an endless, unending supply. It's a mobile supply chain that just keeps circling and restocking the cavalry. Logistics innovations. You thought only the Romans were good at engineering. This innovation is going to change warfare permanently. And the Romans, they tried that Roman shield. What's that called? The testudo. That tortoise formation where they can lock their shields and kind of make a tent. It's a good formation. We got to know the testudo. But then Serena maybe knows it's going to happen. He sends in 1,000 heavy cataphracts. What's a cataphract? Armored cavalry. The cataphracts are horse and rider both encased in overlapping scale armor as they slam into the immobilized tortoise formation, right? That's just a protection, you know, the tortoise shield. You can't run in a testudo. You can't maneuver. You're just a fixed target. Over 20,000 Roman soldiers are killed at Carrhae. 10,000 more are marched east into permanent slavery. That's ironic, or is it justice? So we've talked about slaves earlier. 10,000 Roman soldiers who think that they are the elite of all elite and now been lost into the slave markets forever. Crassus himself is killed in this battle. And what happens next is either historical fact, maybe it's legend to help understand and explain what's happened, but no one is entirely certain. The story has survived. For whatever reason, Crassus's severed head is carried to the Parthian royal court in a traveling Greek theater troupe. Greek influence from Alexander the Great is performing Euripides, the Bacchae for the king. And the head of the wealthiest man in Rome is used as a stage prop in the climactic scene. And the legend says that the molten gold, the very thing Crassus spent his entire life accumulating, 7,100 talents is what we keep saying, molten gold was then poured down his throat in the climactic scene of this play. This man, Crassus, has died chasing glory, and he's drowning in the thing that he already had enough of. Was it enough? And now while Crassus's bones are cooling in the desert sand at night, Caesar is dealing with a crisis of his own. His daughter has died. His ties with Pompey are no longer in the family. In 52 BC, Gaul rises up. The Celts, the Celtic chieftain named Vercingetorix, has done something no single Gallic Celtic leader has ever managed to do. He unifies the tribes, all of them, abandoning fixed settlements, and then scorches the earth. Scorched earth. Remember the Punic War. That's what Hannibal did against, this is coming from lesson 46, against the home field advantage. So now Julius Caesar can't have supply lines. And this mounts a war of strategic attrition that nearly works. Vercingetorix retreats with approximately 80,000 warriors to a fortified hilltop stronghold called Alesia. Alesia. Here is where Caesar's engineering supremacy, Roman engineering, the thing that built that Rhine bridge in 10 days for all the barbarians to be amazed at, we're back. Caesar builds a wall of 11 miles, wooden fortifications, towers, trenches, sharpened stakes. They completely surround Alesia. Nothing can get in. nothing can get out. It's a siege. Vercingetorix sends for help before the wall is completely closed off, and that's when a relief army arrives, unified Celtic Gallic warriors. It's massive, hundreds of thousands of warriors, we think. So Caesar's 11 miles of walls are now facing assault from the outside. Now, if I have kids mapping this, can you map this? And what are you thinking right now? Kids can see what the problem is. Caesar is surrounded now. It's supposed to be a siege that he's in charge of, but now he is going to be laid siege. So with his back to the first wall, the relief army starts pressing from the outside. He's about to be caught between the two. Caesar's solution is audacious, the most audacious act of military engineering now to date in the ancient world. He builds another wall, a second wall that's 14 miles and it faces outward. It's a whole ring, another set of deep moats, hidden stakes, anti-cavalry trenches, watchtowers, the works. The besiegers become the besieged. Caesar's army is sandwiched 25 total miles of their own fortifications that are fighting simultaneously inward against Vercingetorix and outward against the relief troops. The two-front assault comes, and it's brutal. It nearly breaks through. But Caesar personally rides to every point of the crisis. His red general's cloak marks him from a distance. There. He's plugging gaps in the line personally. His troops are going to love this. His relief army collapses. The garrison inside Alesia surrenders. Vercingetorix, in a final act of defiant dignity, dresses in his finest armor and rides out alone, lays a sword at Caesar's feet. One hero to another, right? The Gallic independence is definitely over. This man has surrendered. The Gallic unity, the Celtic, Gallic, all these barbarian forces are giving in to Caesar. And now the Senate faces a moment that it has been dreading for years, that they created with the triumvirs. They created by giving so much command authority to Pompey the Great. Crassus is now dead. Julius Caesar is young and popular. This imbalance, in the death of Julia, remind us of that. Caesar now commands a veteran army that has watched the heroism, the success, and they are loyal to him personally, not to the country, not to the state, not to Rome, not to the Senate. What does SPQR stand for? The Senate and the people of Rome. Senatus Populesque Romanus. But now it's Julius. And so the Optimates, with Pompey as their main guy, the senators who spent years trying to defend the old ways, the Republic's institutions, trying to use these guys to hold the country together at a time of great success. They've abandoned their virtue and their principle. They declare martial law. And this is hard to understand. What is the problem? Why are they concerned about Julius Caesar? We've got Pompey. Now they actually put Pompey as the sole consul by 52 BC. Sole consul. You're supposed to have two consuls. Remember, they can each veto each other. It's another Republic workaround that the Senate keeps doing, and it's only going to make things worse. Because Pompey in charge in 52 BC with Julius Caesar saying, what's the problem? I'm doing my job. I'm making Rome bigger and better. And yeah, my troops love me. And yes, they're loyal. And yes, we're rich. But it's benefiting everybody. Roman power. What is the problem here? These men have spent decades insisting that the rule of law now hand over emergency dictatorial powers to one armed man because they are more afraid of a different armed man. Aristotle's golden mean? Broken? Extremes? Is it just completely dead? Triumvirate is gone. It imploded. The three guys are not getting along. There's nothing keeping them together. Who's got the bigger army? Who's got more authority? The Republic has now replaced their constitution with checks and balances. And, you know, if you've been around these past few lessons, you'd say this has been coming for a while. Institutional gridlock. And now we're down to 2 celebrity generals, bigger than that. They are armed titans with armies and authority, but they're on opposite sides of an official dividing line. What this lesson is demonstrating to us is something that we need to be classical scholars about. We need to sit in this and think, could it ever happen today? This republic, the Roman Republic, did not fall to a foreign empire. It was ground down beneath the extremes, largely driven by ambition, Caesar's ambition spiral, Pompey's power and wealth, and leading citizens all saying that they were doing the right thing for the old ways, the old Roman Republic. But if you apply the old Greek classical thinking, who gave Rome its constitutional architecture, they understood some of this precisely, just like you do as a classical scholar. You know that the greatest threat to the civilization is not necessarily the enemy from the outside. From outside the gates, it's excess within. It's the outside the golden mean, the excess. Virtue lives in the middle, in the golden mean. And it's not about who has the strongest army and the most wealth. Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters throughout all of history, and that includes your journey. Because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.